lead to intense and competitive battles between the United States and the Soviet Union. After the Soviets pretty much dominated in the games, the Americans were rewarded with a token of gratitude at the White House. The main venues during the games were held in what was known as Moscow's Central Lenin Stadium, which is currently called Kuzhniki. This is also where the 2008 FIFA World Cup finals were. The Soviets prided their sports wins as a political statement and almost a display of prestigious dominance. In fact, when the games were over, the Soviets had won 195 medals. This is more than any other country before the 1980 Olympics. So ironically, the 1980 Winter Olympics were held in Lake Placid, New York, and the most relative date during the 1980 Winter Olympics was February 22nd, 1980. This is what is infamously known as the Miracle on Ice. This is when a very young U.S. hockey team who was heavily undersized and inexperienced defeated the legendary Soviets. And after the win, it brought an uproar of patriotic fever and excitement to the American people. This was a significant event, not only because the team was physically undersized, but it was amid the Cold War. The American hockey team was full of college students, and they showed America, the Soviets, and the entire world that the U.S. is a force to be reckoned with, and the Soviets are not invincible on or off the ice. This is still considered one of the greatest moments in American sports. So typically, the Russian government has the chairman, the deputy chairman, and the ministers. The president is who appoints the chairman. The way it works is within the first 2 weeks of presidency, the president must find a candidate or of the prime minister to give to the State Duma, which is basically like their Congress. So if the candidate of prime minister is appointed by the State Duma, they will be appointed within a week. And if they're rejected, the president must find another ideal candidate. The state can only reject a nomination twice. So in that case, the president would have a choice to pick one of the two as he pleases. Current Russian government is significantly different from Soviet Russia. In 1993, most of Russia's population voted for a new constitution. It stated that the president cannot run more than twice and is in control with a significant amount of power. The president is in power to appoint chairman of the government, key judges, and cabinet members. And in 2008, a new amendment arose that stated the presidential term will run from 4 years to 6 years. Much like America, citizens must be at least 18 years old to vote in a presidential election. So Russian currency is typically called rubles. However, when one is traveling to Russia, it's best to take euros because they're widely accepted as currency as well. Also, Russian rubles are usually not in stock. So as of 2018, Russia has a GDP of $4.2 trillion. Russian economy was the 11th largest in the world in April of 2020, but it has shrunk negative 5.5% according to the International Monetary Fund. So Russia's GDP per capita is 11,584, which is a standard living that is better than Brazil or Turkey, but it's worse than Greece, Hungary, and Poland. So Russia is typically a mixed economy, which has come a long way from 1991 when they were known as the Soviet Union. Russia supplies 30% of Europe's oil and 40% of their natural gas. So Russia and the United States signed a trade agreement in 2006 that helped the membership process. The agreement reduced tariffs on cars and increased foreign ownerships of large businesses. This agreement protected property rights, and in 2012 of August, Russia becomes a member of the WTO, which is known as the World Trade Organization, which allowed Russia to have and expand to more foreign markets and businesses that's not just energy. In 2012, the Permanent Normal Trade Relations with Russia was approved. This was significant because it removed Cold War era trade restrictions. This was an agreement, but also worked as a truce to put differences in the past and basically just to move on. Okay, so now sort of a little bit of the fun stuff. So Russian holidays are usually accompanied by traditional foods, dances, and celebrations. Russia enjoys festivities such as carnivals that include adults and children. Maslenitsa is the oldest Russian folk holiday, which marks the end of winter. During the holiday, they will eat a lot of pancakes, which is supposed to represent the sun, hence the fact that it's the celebration of the beginning of spring. The meal will usually be washed down with some vodka. After interviewing a Russian friend who once lived in Russia, she discussed how vodka is the primary drink of choice compared to America, where a drink of choice might be water or beer for adults. She could not help but laugh when discussing how much they drink vodka there, and it's not really a false stereotype. She said, people drink it there like it's water. It's pretty crazy. You can find it in pretty much any store, and you can drink it wherever and whenever you would like. So if this were to happen in America, you would most likely be arrested in most states with an open container law, especially while on the streets. She also said that the mob basically runs everything, and especially Moscow, which is where she was for most of the time. So Russian middle class has had drastic changes in life, style, and culture recently. Traveling abroad has been much more common, followed along with importation of luxury goods such as vehicles. Individuals bought land to build more houses on which would have been prohibited in Soviet Russia. So another lifestyle change in Russia has been the celebration of religion. This is because of the downfall of communism, which was mostly against religion. Now, non-believers will participate in religious festivities and activities as well. So Russia has had extraordinary and life-changing success in technology within the past century. The most significant, however, would have to be Sputnik in 1957. So the exact date was October 4th, 1957, when the Soviets successfully launched Sputnik, which was the world's first satellite to reach space and orbit the Earth. The launch was significant because it demonstrated a new military, political, and technological advances for the Soviets. This is what launched the USSR space race. However, the United States is technically the winner of the space race due to the first man landing on the moon in 1969. In fact, the Soviets had multiple failed attempts, including the launch pad explosion that was in 1969. And during this time, the Soviets got a bad reputation from the American people and were known as, I guess, the villains or the bad guys, just because we were in a so-called race with them. So Russia's a large country that typically varies in terms of weather. However, Moscow is the capital, so that will be the main focus. Usually Russia has a very cold and harsh winters with lots of snow and not a lot of rain. January is usually the coldest out of all the months. It is no surprise to natives when temperatures get to a point of freezing or even below 0 degrees Fahrenheit. Temperatures in the winter usually never go above 25 to 30 degrees Fahrenheit. Moscow usually has very unique style of architecture in Moscow with colorful and pointed roofs that locals describe to be very beautiful in the winter, especially when they have snow on top. So unlike most countries who will stay inside during these cold and brutal days, Russians like to get out. They enjoy bundling up to dine at restaurants, go to the Christmas market, or simply take a stroll around the block. Summers in Russia are not unique or different from America or Ohio, except for the fact that it's always a little bit cooler there. Typically, they are shorter because their winters are so long. So it never gets too hot, so it's pretty pleasant. Temperatures usually never get over 80 degrees Fahrenheit. During an interview with a Russian colleague, when asked about the people's attitudes towards Americans, she replied, they were very welcoming. She also stated that she made new friends and even went out with them in Moscow. She also mentioned how Russian gangsters bought her and her friends shots of vodka all night, which I thought was pretty funny. So this sort of relates to what I discussed earlier in terms of the Russian drink of choice. She ended the statement with, there are nice people who want to know about you and America as much as you want to know about them and Russia. So in conclusion, I think Russia would be a great country to host an international sporting event such as the Olympic Games again. It's a large and beautiful country that has very decent summers and cold winters. Both would be beneficial because nobody wants to be too hot in the summer. And although the winters are cold, one can still bundle up easily and participate in their specific events. And not only is it good in the winter aspect, but it also has beautiful cities like Moscow to explore. In this case, people would be able to go watch the events and be tourists in their free time. And if they need a break from sports, they can sort of look around Moscow. Also, there is not as much political turmoil right now between the countries, especially the U.S. and Russia, compared to a few years ago, back when they were known as the Soviet Union. The last international sporting event in Russia was the FIFA World Cup, and that was a success with no big issues. This is another reason that this would be an ideal area to host an upcoming event in the next few years, although it may not be anytime soon. I think hosting a large event would be beneficial and a success for Russia and its pestle aspects. Thank you, and here are my references.
Okay, Paul. Good. Let me make a few comments. I'm getting feedback from somebody.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if